Hey guys, and in this video today we will be discussing a little bit about the stock market financial ratio called the dividend yield. We'll talk about how investors will use this financial ratio to determine which stocks are more appealing to buy in the market. Now, to give you a better understanding of what the dividend yield is before we start building this calculator, let's say there are two companies, Company A and Company B. Let's say Company A offers an annual dividend of $5, and let's also say that Company A's stock price is $100. Now let's say Company B offers an annual dividend of $10, and let's also say that their stock price is the same as Company A, which is $100, which I'm doing that just for simplicity, but obviously we're not always going to have numbers that are easy to calculate. Now to calculate the dividend yield for both of these companies, we will use the formula annual dividend divided by stock price times 100, and what happens when we multiply it by 100 is that it's going to convert our answer to a percentage. So now for Company A, the annual dividend is $5 divided by the stock price, which is $100. Therefore, the units dollars will cancel out, leaving us with 0.05. Now we want to convert it to a percentage, so we will multiply it by 100, giving us a dividend yield of 5%. However much money we make, we are getting 5% for dividend. The company is paying us 5%. Also, something very important that I forgot to mention earlier in the video, dividend yield is also expressed as a percentage even if it's greater than 100%, which is why we multiply the result from the annual dividend divided by stock price by 100. To convert it into a percentage. Now let's calculate Company B's dividend yield. Its annual dividend is $10 and the stock price is 100, so 10 divided by 100 will give us 0.1. Now multiply 0.1 by 100 to get 10%. So Company B's dividend yield is 10%. Also keep in mind that the dividend yield of a stock will not always remain consistent. A company can stop offering dividends whenever they want, since the company wasn't obligated or required to offer dividends to the investor, aka the shareholder, in the first place. You can think of the dividend yield as being sort of like a reward for you investing your money into their company. Now let me break down the dividend yield formula even more for you guys. Whenever the annual dividend goes up, the dividend yield also goes up, so there is a direct correlation between those two components, which makes sense, because the larger the numerator, the larger the value will be. However, whenever the stock price goes up, the dividend yield percentage goes down. This makes sense as well because the stock price is the denominator of the formula. And if you're dividing by a larger denominator, then you're going to get a smaller answer for your dividend yield, which I believe is quite self-intuitive for most of us. Now that is pretty much all you need to know about dividend yield to get started with this calculator. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Alright, I just got into Visual Studio Code and just generated my boilerplate code, and now we can get started building this calculator. We'll create an H1 and we'll call it Dividend Yield Calculator. And then after that we'll have a label with a span in it. We'll give an ID of span 1 and we'll call it Annual Dividend. Underneath that span we'll create an input, give it a type of number. ID will be AD, which stands for Annual Dividend. And we'll create another label for our stock price. So we'll give this label a span with the ID of span 2, call it stock price, and then stock price. Then we'll create an input, give it a type of number. ID will be SP, short for stock price. And then we're going to create a button outside of our second label, give it an ID of button or whatever you want to give it, and we'll just call it calculate. And that is all we need for our HTML, so we can go create a script tag and start writing some JavaScript. So the formula for the dividend yield is this right here, which I'll type out for you. It's going to be annual dividend divided by the stock price times 100, which will convert it into a percentage. So I'll just type that there if you guys want to take notes, which will convert your answer to a percent. Now we can create a few variables. We'll create our button variable, bring in our button, and then after that give it an on-click event, which is a shorter way of giving it an event listener instead of saying button.add event listener, because that's just more keys to type. So we'll create a variable called annual dividend and bring in our annual dividend, whatever the user typed into the annual dividend input, which is this input right here. This is our annual dividend input, and this is our stock price input. And as you notice, when we hover over it, we have these two arrows which we can change the value with. So let's just bring in AD.value, and we can do the same for our stock price, SP, dot value, and we can do var dividend yield. This is where we actually start doing the math. So this variable will be equal to the annual dividend divided by the stock price times 100. And now we can alert using template literals, which will allow us to use variables or parameters in our quotes. And we'll just say dividend yield colon and use this syntax right here, the new ES6 syntax. And we'll just type in our variable name, which is dividend yield. And let's also add a percent sign after it because it's going to be a percentage. And now let's go test it out. So if I try doing 5 and 100, we can expect to get 5%. Let's see if we're right. And as you can see, we did indeed get 5%. So everything's working. Just to make sure, I can do 12 and then 200. That should give us 6%. There we go. Everything's working. Awesome. Now we're done with our HTML and JavaScript. Let's go write some CSS for this calculator to make it look nicer. And I'll also give this a title. We'll just call it Dividend Yield Calculator, and we'll style our body and give it a background of this hex right here. And now we can grab our container, do background white so that it shows up on this gray background, and we'll do height 500 pixels, width 700 pixels, display flex, justify content center, align items center as well, position absolute, top 45%, left 50%, transform, translate negative 50% and negative 50%, and we'll do border radius 10 pixels, which should round off our container's corners off like that to make it more round. And now we'll style our input, give it a cursor pointer, background RGB 248, 247, 247. Alright, I skipped forward a little bit to save you guys some time, and now let's style our label. We'll just do display flex, justify content center, align items center, and now we can style our button. Give it a width of 70%, height of 55 pixels, border radius will be 50 pixels, and once we're done giving our button all of those styles, we're going to give it a hover property. And we'll just do font size 1.05 rem. So basically when we hover over it, its font size will change to 1.05 rem. And now we can style our label once again and just do font family sans serif. Style our H1, give it a font family of Poppins, sans serif, position relative, bottom 70 pixels, annual dividend, we'll just do position relative, and we can do bottom 70 pixels. No, my bad. I meant to say right 17 pixels, like so. And now we can style our span 1. We'll just do position relative, right 30 pixels, top 15 pixels. And let's also give these styles to our span 2. So let's just use a comma separating those two elements like so. And that is all we need to do for this video. So let's go test it out one more time before we wrap up for the video. So I'll use 5 for my annual dividend, $100 for my stock price, and like before, we get 5%. We can enter in some complicated numbers like that, and we should get a really long decimal number. And that is how you build the dividend yield calculator using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you found this useful and want to see more like this. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos coming out like this for the next few days, because tomorrow I'll be showing you guys another financial ratio calculator. So stay tuned for that as well. Comment down below what you want to see next. Other than that, have a good day, and I'll see you in my next video.